trying to get Santa in the frame here. But it's going to happen. Oh, well.
Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of Christmas too. I like the gifts. The gifts are nice. Like, praise Jesus for one day.
Yeah.
All right, it looks like we're live. So, Anthony, thanks for taking the time to come on and have a conversation with me. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Okay, sure. You know this already. I'm not telling you anything new probably, but I've been doing street epistemology for about 7 years. It's this technique where you use questions to explore claims and getting fairly proficient at it, I suppose. And the whole community of people who are doing street epistemology, I think, has really exploded. I think there's a lot of people who see the value in it. I certainly do. I'm totally enamored with it. It's completely changed the way that I interact with reality and the people in reality. I find that my conversations are much better for having done so, for using this different approach than arguing and debating. And you know a thing or two about debating. I subscribe to your channel and I watch several of your debates.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So, I'm
What
really
else should I
curious:
say? I
is
don't know.
how did you decide to like? You saw street epistemology and you learned about it. I'm guessing from what's his name, Peter Boghossian, from his
Hmm.
book, and then you're like, "This is really cool. I'm going to go mess with people and try this out." Was that like your thinking behind like starting it?
Pretty much. Well, I was sort of enamored with the concept of street epistemology, but I was also skeptical of it. I didn't. I the author was making some pretty broad, bold claims about the method, that it's a better way of engaging with people. So part of me was optimistic. I thought, hey, this is a good approach. It sounds like a good approach, and I'm having bad conversations. Maybe I should try it out. And then the other thing too is I wanted to kind of prove the author's claims to see if they really were as good as he was purporting it to be, because other than some examples in the book, there weren't any video examples. So yes, I went out with my camera and started asking people if I could interview them, putting the conversations on YouTube. And I like to think getting progressively better over the years. I think I've improved over the years. And other people are also uploading content. It's not just me. And you don't have to also engage with people on the street with a camera. That's a common misconception that I think a lot of people have about the method. Were you ever under that impression?
Yeah, it's just street epistemology is only with a camera. If you don't have a camera, that's not true street epistemology. You're not a part of the cult yet. You got to go get a camera. It's like required.
Did you think that?
No, of course not.
Oh,
We've
you
been
didn't. Okay, because I suspect a lot of people initially think that. I hope they don't persist on that belief, but yeah.
That'd be pretty cool though. You have to like you get like a little badge. Once you get the camera, you get like upgraded to a level 2 street epistemology.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to record them. Very few people do. Most people, I think, use street epistemology in their normal everyday encounters. My preference is to use it when it's an organically originated claim. I don't like to, it's kind of uncomfortable still to this day to go out with a camera and ask people if they want to surface a deeply held belief. But in order to get examples to show people how to do it, or at least maybe how not to do it, or something in between, and just to get better at it, to improve at it, you kind of have to plan to have these conversations. So that's what I do. A lot of the gear that you see here, not this stuff, but tripods and stuff. In fact, I haven't had one of my shirts on. I'm planning to go out after we're done here, maybe record some more talks. The semester's coming to a close. But what I found though is I really like doing it, even though it's a little unusual, awkward. Sometimes you catch the attention of faculty or the police on the campus, or if you're at a park or something. As we stand right now, it's a little unusual. Maybe in 5 years, this will be commonplace. Maybe in 5 years, almost every university will have somebody showing up on the campus and setting up a table with a big old question mark on it and inviting people to come up. I think that would be amazing. Why aren't retired people doing that? Why aren't people doing that in their spare time? Hopefully, we can get to the point where that's commonplace, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to start doing it at my campus because I'm a part of the local atheist group, and they can get me a booth in one of the like buildings, and I can sit there as like ask an atheist anything. And so I actually was wondering about your recording equipment. How do you get the sound from the people? Like, do you actually give them like a lapel mic, or is it like a?
Not yet. But my son has started a YouTube channel and he's requesting all this gear. So he asked for lavalier mics. So as I was ordering them, I was thinking, I'm going to try these out. I was actually tempted to take him out with me today. But what I usually do is just I have a GoPro with an extra camera added onto it. So it captures my voice really well, but not so much the person that I'm speaking with. And if they speak low, which a lot of people do, and sometimes you don't know how they're going to talk until you ask them to stop. And there's also background noise and all sorts of complications, wind, that getting the audio captured is a big challenge. But I've been trying to improve it over the year. The other thing that I do is when I have a conversation, like I'm editing a video right now with these two Mormons, two guys from the LDS church. They're missionaries. One of them is talking normally, the other one talks really low. But in every case over the last year and a half or so, I've been sending a WAV file, a high quality WAV file to a friend of mine who lives in Germany, who is an audio engineer. So he, in addition to all the stuff that I do, he also tries to improve it a little bit.
Oh, that's really cool.
It makes a big difference, I think.
Yeah, for
When I
sure.
listen to the original compared to what I'm uploading with the video, there's a big difference. At least I think that there is. I don't see a lot of comments, people saying, wow, the audio was amazing. I don't usually get that kind of feedback though.
Yeah, I definitely know it's a lot of work to do the sound editing. I had to do it all for one of my
Mm-hmm.
live debates where they just sent me all the files and you had to like edit them all together and like manage all
Oh,
the sound. Like, oh,
it's ridiculous, especially like there's something to it about being on different audio tracks, but then lining them up. And then if you make an adjustment, or let's say you snip out a cough or something, you got to be careful because that stuff will get out of sync easy.
yeah, definitely. So yeah, the fact that you have a friend who's willing to do that for you, that's a really nice friend.
He's a colleague and he's become a friend, I suppose. But yeah, he charges. This isn't a free thing.
Yeah, that's good. He deserves it because it's a lot
He
of work.
deserves it. Yeah, I mean, it's well worth my time to send it to him and send him a little bit of money.
So you decided to start on college campuses normally, and then you seem to move to like a trail of some kind. What inspired you to start with college campuses and then move to these other locations?
I didn't start at the college campuses. I started at the Alamo in here in San Antonio because I wanted to talk to street preachers because I figured that they're consistent, meaning they're always there, seemingly always there on the weekends. I was available on the weekends to talk to them. And I figured, well, if this approach works, then you might as well start with the people who are out there proselytizing and yelling at people. So I thought, well, this just makes sense. But in hindsight, it was probably one of the least productive moves. I think it would have been better if I started at the university, probably. But yeah, after about maybe 6 months or a year talking to street preachers, I finally decided to go to other locations, talk to regular people.
Regular people.
I got a cough again. Um, but I found the universities, and not just one. I think I went to like four or five across town. But the universities and the trail are great locations to go to. The universities, you tend to get a little bit of a younger demographic. The folks there are generally in a thinking environment. They're used to being challenged, and maybe younger people might be a little bit more comfortable on camera. And then the trail, I would say, advantage wise, might be it's quieter, and there seems to be a more diverse group of people walking by on the trail.
You said you've like it was less productive to have the conversations with the street preachers. Have you noticed that street epistemology seems to work differently with different groups of people?
Let me clarify. It's not to say that I wouldn't use street epistemology with a street preacher. The way that I would go about doing it is, well, I wouldn't walk up to them and just start interjecting in the middle of their preaching, which is what I did in the past. And there's videos on my channel. You have to dig around to find them, but they're there. I think I'd wait. I'd listen to them. I might be jotting down some notes. I'd offer them some water when they came to sit down to take a break. I might ask to see if they would be willing to come on the other side of the sitting area to get away from the three other preachers that might be there, for example. I want people to be in a relaxed, unguarded, honest, and open mindset. So if you stride up to a street preacher and you get in their face with a camera, you're not going to elicit that type of openness generally.
Yeah, I actually saw a clip of you talking to a street preacher that you used on your American Atheist talk,
Mm-hmm.
and you just went up to him and started berating him. Like, how are you doing this? Like scaring all these kids and these
What's wrong
people.
with you? Well, yeah, I mean, I was in the midst of learning street epistemology, like what it is. I still didn't even quite understand it when I was going out and talking to the street preachers. And as an atheist who you tend to see the harm that these religious beliefs can cause, when you hear somebody yelling about how you're going to go to hell if you don't believe this, and it seems like it's a completely unfounded claim, that gets your ire up. So I couldn't resist attacking him basically with my words, and it probably wasn't very effective. It may have affected other people who may have been listening to that, I suppose, or maybe theists, maybe who watched my video, yelling at the guy like, "What's wrong with you? Why are you believing this? This is horrible stuff." I suppose that could change a person's mind or help them reflect on their belief a little bit more. But I certainly wouldn't use that approach today in a one-on-one conversation.
So were you always a skeptic before you became a street epistemologist, and what led you to that?
I think I always was a skeptic. I never really knew the word. Maybe family members would comment on my skepticism. I know my parents knew that I was a skeptic because I questioned God at a very young age. I didn't think it was true. I thought it was made up, like Santa, you know? Um,
What, Santa's real? Don't lie.
Santa's real. He's right there. Can you see him?
No, there's so much evidence for Santa all over the place. I mean, how
Right
do the
there. I
presents
mean,
get there?
geez. But, I remember being the oldest of four. I remember my parents asking me to help, put the presents around the tree. They were making me a part of this. So I was kind of looking at things maybe from like an adult perspective, or like noticing that my siblings were believing this, but my parents were deceiving them, with all the nicest intentions. They were trying to make good memories. I don't fault them for this. We do Santa. We did Santa. Don't do it anymore with our kids. That's a whole nother topic. But yeah, I was skeptical. I thought God was made up, and it became apparent that the people around me, my family, my friends, my teachers, everyone in my life seemed to believe it, and it seemed important to them. So I just kept quiet about it. I didn't really bring it up. There was no need to, I suppose. Nobody was asking me if I believed it. I don't think. I just kind of went along with it for the longest time. And then finally, through a series of events, I started to realize the harm that religion causes. I think when you have kids, you start to think about how they're acquiring their thoughts and how easy it is to manipulate their thoughts. And I didn't want my children to be manipulated into thinking something was true. So I was really guarded with them, like especially around my parents, who wanted them to come over as young kids to help them set up the nativity set during the holidays. And I said, my kids aren't old enough for that yet. They can't discern between opinion and fact just yet. So maybe, is there something else we can do? Like maybe you can make cookies with them or something. Would that work? So we were trying to find compromises where we wanted, and we have raised skeptical kids. And I think that's a valuable thing a parent can do to somebody.
Have you had a lot of street epistemology types of conversations with your parents and a close family?
Mm, no, not really. I mean, I had a few talks with one of my parents, but they were guarded because they were aware that I was doing street epistemology. So as we were just conversing, one of them said, "Are you using that SE stuff on me?" And I said, "Honestly, I'm not. I think I'm just asking you questions and we're having a conversation." So, but no, there are people in my family that I'd love to have a street epistemology conversation with, for sure. But there just hasn't been it hasn't been the right time. It hasn't been the right venue for it. And that's a really big consideration, especially when it's somebody who you know, who you love and who you value that relationship with.
Yeah, I find it really hard to try and find opportunities to have conversations and have it not like what is the right time to have like a conversation like that? How do you find those kinds of opportunities?
Sometimes you have to plan them. Sometimes they're fortuitous. You're in a car. You're driving from San Antonio to Houston. You've got 3 hours to kill, and you've built rapport for the last hour. You've caught up, and then then one of the passengers says something. It could be a great opportunity to do it. Would I do it at the Thanksgiving table with 20 other people sitting around? No, absolutely not. I think that'd be a recipe for disaster. I think I made a blog post. Yeah, it's using street epistemology with loved ones, and I think I have a couple of suggestions on when is the right time to use this approach with family members and friends.
So what inspired you to start uploading these conversations onto YouTube? How did you get into social media?
I wanted to have examples to show people who were also interested in this method to get feedback, to see what am I doing wrong? What is good about what I'm doing? Like what was the best thing that I did in that 10-minute talk? And typing up a synopsis of your conversation doesn't really do those conversations justice. So I would upload my videos, and that was largely, I didn't even really think of it as educational. Maybe when I first started uploading it, I thought, how do I get feedback from people about what I'm doing? And YouTube seemed to be the best way to go about doing it.
Have you gotten a lot of productive feedback?
Oh yeah, tons. Yeah. One of the best things I think you can do as a YouTuber or a content creator, if you're uploading stuff, make sure you have comments turned on. Even though there's garbage in there, don't get me wrong. There's over 7 years, I've probably had to block maybe 10 people. So there's some jokers out there. But for the most part, the feedback that I was getting, whether it was a criticism or a compliment, it was useful. So on a daily basis, Tom, you must, I don't know if you do this too, but on a daily basis, I probably get 20 to 30 unexpected feedbacks on my content that I wasn't expecting from around the world, from somebody who watched my stuff, thought about it, hopefully, and spent the time to give me some feedback. And that has been useful because I might glance at my phone, get a little bit of feedback, hop in my car, and think about it for the next 10 minutes. It's been incredibly powerful. It's been incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I definitely have experienced the same thing of trying to people who think of things differently from you and consider different perspectives that you haven't considered, like, oh, that's a really good idea, I should try that. I've actually gotten some arguments that I steal from my commenters, like, oh, that's a really good argument, I like that, I'm
Yeah.
stealing that. Actually,
Oh, yeah. I get great suggestions that I can roll out. Like, I might glance at my phone when I'm done with this interview, and on the way to go out to record some more talks in the next hour, I might get a suggestion that I could test right then and there and see how it works. It's fun. It's really great.
so how did you get to know, like, Peter Boghossian? Have you been a fan of him for a long time? How did you get introduced to his book?
I don't remember how I got introduced to his book. I think it was when I was in Portland for the 35th anniversary of the Freedom from Religion organization, FFRF. I think it may have been the first atheist related conference that I ever went to. And Peter, I think, was a last minute speaker. Maybe somebody ducked out, couldn't do it, and he filled the slot, I think. And I think his book had just dropped or was going to drop. He may have even been selling at the conference because I remember reading his book on a plane. So it may have been me reading it afterwards, but he talked about this method, and then I got his book, and that's when I decided to like read it and try to put it into practice. But what would happen was I would upload videos to YouTube and then tweet the link to them. And then probably around that time, I suppose I noticed that Peter was on Twitter. I would send him a link to my videos, and then he would give me suggestions. And then one day, I think he messaged me on Twitter to say, "What's your phone number?" I'm like, "Okay, you know." So he called me. I think I was working in a little league concession stand at the time when all this was going on. I'm like, "Holy shit. I mean, Peter Boghossian wants to talk to me about street epistemology. This is pretty cool." And so we just kept in touch. This was probably 5 years ago, maybe longer. And we've just been increasingly working together more and more. He asked me to help him out with his app, which was like a 3-year project. You really get to know somebody when you work with them for 3 years on a project. And even to this day, I might send him a link to something or something that somebody said or a suggestion and say, what do you think about this? Or he might ask me for some feedback on something that he's trying to do.
Yeah, that's really
But
cool. The fact that he reached
mhm.
out to you and actually was talking with you about street epistemology and watching your channel, that would be
Yeah.
probably a really cool experience for him too, to actually see his methodology applied and be able to watch it. Like, that would be, I would be interested in seeing that.
Well, he wasn't shy about telling me where I was screwing up, but that was still valuable. He did it in a very gracious way. And as I look back on it now, he was modeling to me how I might consider interacting with other people who would be doing this. You follow me?
Yeah, so he's like teaching you how to teach other people to do street
Yeah,
epistemology.
right. So to this day, it may be because he modeled it, and I really liked it. I was enamored with it. Like, oh wow, like he's giving me personal feedback. But I try to do that too. So if anyone out there is listening, or maybe you are actually even uploading content, you probably have noticed that if you do reach out to me, I try to get back to you. I try to keep engaged and give you suggestions if you need it, but not to the point where I'm telling you how to do it. There's this fine line of giving advice but not being too pushy. I want people to go about it and do it their own way. Like Doug from Pine Creek, he has a unique style to street epistemology.
He sure
I
does have a
He
unique style.
does, and I wouldn't dare suggest that he do anything different because that's good. That diversity is good
Yeah, and then
and
you
it's
get like the
important.
Reed Nice Wonders. He also has a really unique style too.
Reed has a different style. Tyrone from Let's Chat has a different style. Raul from Street Knowledge has a different style. Eddie from Deep Discussions has a different style. Oh gosh, I'm probably forgetting some other people. Those are just the ones that are coming to mind. I apologize if I forgot your name. There are a lot of people who are doing it too, and that's good. That's good. We want more people doing this and uploading examples. It's not just one person
And you recently went
deciding
to
what it is.
yeah, you recently went to Politicon and applied street epistemology to politics.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? Does street epistemology work the same across different fields? And is it different to interact with people in politics who actually have like arguments and evidence as opposed to people who believe on faith?
That's a good question, and I don't know if I can adequately answer it just yet. I mean, fully. But let me just so far, what I'm noticing, it seems like political claims are harder to use SE on than religious claims that or supernatural claims that tend to be based on faith, usually is what it comes down to. You're right. When people have a political view, they tend to think that they have evidence for it. However, most people still can benefit from having their political views explored using this method. And I have examples on my channel. Reed has examples on his channel. Tyrone, Eddie, Raul, Doug, maybe? No, Doug's pretty specialized. You can use it with political claims. I just think it's harder. It takes more time. There's probably 500 reasons why I'm of a particular political stripe. So exploring one of those 500 is probably not going to profoundly affect my position on my politics that much. Now, what's interesting, you must notice this. A person's religious stance tends to influence their political stance. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what I find is when I talk to somebody about politics, it tends to come down to religious views and morality. And if that's the case, maybe arguing about our political differences is a waste of time, perhaps. Maybe it's more efficient to go to how they've determined that their religious outlook is true, whether you believe in the God or not.
Yeah, because a lot of their values seem to be the cause of their beliefs, why they think abortion is wrong, why they think porn is wrong, why they think certain things should be illegal with certain drugs. It all seems to be grounded in their original moral foundations, and then they try to find justifications after the fact.
Mm-hmm. And Peter writes about this in his latest book, How to Have Impossible Conversations, that we have a moral epistemology. We see ourselves as good, honest actors who care about other people and want the best and for our kids and all this stuff. And I'm good because I have these views. I may not be a good person if I discard these views. And that is a huge obstacle to address. People, I think, need to see that you can be good without a God belief, to consider what their lives would be like without the God belief.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest hurdle atheists face is that because atheism is like James Lindsay in his book talks about how atheism is essentially I reject your values. And so people distrust atheists. It's like the most distrusted demographic in the country right now because they don't think they can have that objective moral system if you disagree with your personal moral values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which makes me think I've seen certain some campaigns like the It's Good Without God campaign or the Out campaign for atheists that FFRF does. I think there's a usefulness to that because people who have these views can see other people who don't and that they're still good. They're still good, decent people. And sometimes it could be useful, I think, for a person to understand that I can still be good. I just might have to rethink how I'm going about doing it. Like nothing would really change in my life if I didn't think that the God was real. I'd still pay my taxes. I wouldn't beat my kids. you know, um, but a lot of people have tied those two so closely together that you have to call attention that they can be separated. They can be replaced. You can develop a replacement morality and get rid of the God belief, and your life probably wouldn't be all that much different. But your politics would probably change drastically.
So you mentioned you've gone to a bunch of different conferences, the atheist, American Atheist one, the FFRF one. I met you at the Bat Cruise one in Texas
Hmm.
last year. You go to a lot of conferences like that?
Yeah, I mean this was a busy year. I think I went to 3 conferences and gave 10 talks, a dozen talks maybe, um, in the United States and beyond. I gave a talk in England a couple months ago. 2020 looks like it's shaping up to be a really busy year too. But I want to get to the point where other people can go to conferences, and I'm starting to see this. I'm starting to see other people familiar with street epistemology going to conferences and giving phenomenal, concise, entertaining talks. And that's good. So this is an interesting thing. If there's anyone interested in watching the development of a movement or a community or some sort of life changing, or I don't know, zeitgeist changing thing, watching what's happening in street epistemology, I think would be a fascinating study. I want to get to the point where I can start looking more strategically. Yes, I'm going out in an hour to record some more talks because I've had 3 or 4 or 5 different talks with the same people, and I want to have those last talks before the end of the year. This might be my last opportunity. But I want to get to the point where I can be doing other things, and other people in the community can be coming up, and we grow this thing out. And it's so exciting to see other people taking the mantle, giving talks, conducting workshops, uploading videos. It's fantastic. It's an amazing thing to see and be a part of.
And you've started the website, the Street Epistemology website, in order for people to come together and learn about it and be able to be a part of the community and start doing those talks, right? Can you tell us a little bit about where people can go to actually become a part of street epistemology?
I didn't start that website.
Oh,
Somebody else
really?
did. Now I ended up buying the domain from the guy who had it, and yeah. But anyways, actually now the all the websites that you see regarding SE are now owned by the nonprofit organization that we started. But yes, streetepistemology.com is a good website to find resources and communities, links to videos of people who are doing this, frequently asked questions. It's not the best website. We're in the process of updating it, but that'll get you started. My recommendation for anyone that wants to learn more about this is watch a few videos. Watch something recent, within the last 6 months maybe, and then join one of the communities. Maybe the Street Epistemology Discord server that seems to be more active than the 4 Facebook groups that are out there for street epistemology. But yeah, I mean, there's people from around the world who are interested in this and want to learn about it, or just lurk and see what the hell it is we're doing. What are these people up to? What's going on here?
Just sit
Yeah, so
around. I'm going to
I
sit
think
around
there's
and
some
watch
silent
Anthony
observers too.
Magnabosco have conversations. This is my new job. I'm just gonna troll Anthony.
Oh yeah, I got my share of that.
And you get a
Let
lot
me just put
from.
it this way: the mute feature on Twitter is an amazing thing.
Do you get a lot of criticism from the big apologists? Because I know they just hate Doug. They all ban Doug immediately when he comes on their channel.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I don't follow their work that much. Like I might. My only recent exposure to the work of apologists has been through Doug's channel. He plays it. He's not misrepresenting what they're saying. He asks really good questions, thought-provoking questions. He seems to have a really good grasp of the theology. So I like being introduced to their content through him. I don't actively seek it out, and I don't think I get any feedback from them personally. That's interesting. No, I don't. I don't think I've ever been emailed by too many apologists. There's one from the Catholic Church. Well, he's a Catholic, I should say. He's not with the church, but he has a podcast. I think we'll be recording that next week. So lately, and then there's this other guy who's local. Let me just put it this way: there are theists who are reaching out to me to invite me on their shows, but I'm not really getting any direct criticism or feedback from them. I'm not sure why.
Have you tried like talking or using street epistemology on like professors and other apologists, like high level apologists at all?
I don't think I've had too many opportunities to do that. I've run into a few apologetic students, and then, I mean, this happens once a week where somebody emails me to say, why don't you talk to a real believer? I've been studying this for 30 years. I'm a trained apologist and all this stuff. And then they want to do something over email. Well, that's not my preference. And we could do something like this, I suppose, over chat, but street epistemology tends to work best when your conversation partner is being open and honest. And we saw a really good example. Man, this is like all about Doug, but he had a really good example recently. Is he in the live chat? I
Yeah,
don't
he's
know.
down. He's in the live chat.
He didn't pay me to say this. You should pay Doug, actually. If anyone's watching you, Tom, or Doug, they should be making a contribution because you are both doing great work.
Thank you.
What was I going to talk about? Remind me. I was going on a tangent there. I forgot what I was
Talking
talking
about
about.
apologists, and you haven't had many opportunities, and they usually want to do it by email, but you don't prefer that format. It's better to
No,
do it in.
I would rather that they come here and we do something in person on camera.
And then you were saying that it's more you. It works best when they're open and honest.
Right. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for reminding me. Doug had a really seemingly open and honest interlocutor with somebody who self-identified as not an apologist. I think he was really clear at the start that he wasn't, but I think he was a youth pastor. He's teaching kids this stuff. Fortunately, he seemed to really consider Doug's questions. And we watched that individual take time to think about Doug's questions, ask for clarification, and then, you know, think about it like that. Like, that's good. This isn't something that should be ridiculed, mocked. This was something that this individual, I think, should be celebrated. And you don't tend to get that, at least in the interactions that I've watched with people walking up to a microphone and asking Frank Turek a question. You're probably not going to get that kind of openness and introspection. This kind of goes back to our early talk about venue. I would love to talk to an apologist, but striding up to a microphone and asking your questions and hope with an audience watching, do you really think you're going to have an open and honest conversation?
Yeah,
I
probably
don't think
not.
so. I don't think so. And it's an important requirement for SE. And Doug was able to, I think, carry that out pretty well when he was are there things that I would have done differently? Absolutely. I think I would have commended that fellow for, because he seemed to apologize for thinking about it. Like, oh, sorry, awkward pause. The second I may have detected that my interlocutor was expressing regret for thinking about the questions, I would have commended them for it the second I noticed that. So
Yeah,
you
that's
don't tend to get that in that kind of venue,
yeah, and
you
that's a
know?
big thing in our society is that people don't like when they don't know or when they have to think about something and they really consider their beliefs. They think it's a negative thing. They see it as a bad thing, and that's a huge.
Right.
It should absolutely be the exact opposite, and we definitely need to uplift that in society of really thinking about things.
Hell yeah, we should. And the other thing that I noticed after this exchange that I watched where Doug was using SE with a Christian is that the people who were observing that got really excited to observe. I was watching it live too. I was expressing my excitement at the reflection that I was watching. And it wasn't to stomp on his grave or celebrate his uh his his um his
Questioning.
inability to quickly answer the question. I wasn't celebrating that at all. I was excited to watch somebody think. How many times do you don't typically get that when you're talking to a hardcore believer, a theist, or anyone else on a claim that's core to who they are. You don't tend to get that. So when I see it, and I think when other people see it, we get excited about it because you don't normally observe that type of behavior. So I think I got the impression from looking at some of the chatter after that interview that the individual thought that maybe we were laughing at him for thinking, and that absolutely wasn't the case. He should be celebrated for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's kind of the goal of street epistemology and atheism and skepticism in general is just to try and get people to think, to get them outside of the pre-scripted lines and to really
Hmm.
engage with the topic in a new way. And street epistemology does that really well. I've definitely
Yeah.
incorporated some of the street epistemology tactics in my conversations.
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, figure out the real reason that's propping it up. Like, is that a reason that gives you confidence, but it won't take away the confidence if you determine that it's not a good reason? Like, how does that work? Why does that reason only boost your confidence, but it wouldn't detract from your confidence? Can we talk about that? So you're not even talking about the specific claims, but the impact. Sorry, you're not only talking about the specific reasons for thinking that the claim is true. You are making sure that it's really the reason that's propping it up. And we spend a lot of time giving people counter evidence to contest reasons that don't have any bearing on their confidence that it's true. And that's what I love about that's just one little slice of SE. That's one aspect of it. It's one component to it, but it's something that we can all benefit from. It's so much more efficient to be talking about the real reasons that are propping up our beliefs than stuff that isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that this guy is. Do you remember exactly what the video is called? Is that the one, the awkward pauses one? The video?
The last I checked, that was a title. There's two versions of it. I think there's like a 4 hour version, and then I think maybe Doug snipped it down to an hour and 20 minutes or something. I put the snipped down version, meaning like an hour and 20 minute version, in my top 10 playlist because I loved it so much. I thought it was a really great example on both ends. Doug as the practitioner of the method, and then this other individual as the interlocutor who was contemplating the questions that Doug was asking. I thought they both did a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any other really good examples of people who you really respect on the theist side who engage in conversations like that and really think about the topic?
There's one fellow coming to mind, but it's he's not like a famous apologist or anything. It's this kid who I met on the campus over this last semester. We've had 4 conversations. He keeps coming back. He keeps wanting to explore his belief. He's a Christian. He's 100% sure he has the objective truth of the matter with regards to the Christian God existing. So he understands that truth is objective. He understands. We had a second conversation about biases. He came back for a third talk, and we talked about alternate morality outlooks. So, how would you function, and how would you still be a good person if you discovered that you don't have a good reason for thinking Christianity is true? And he started surfacing this other moral framework that he was exposed to as when he was in the Boy Scouts. Now, the second he said that, I was thinking, aren't the Boy Scouts sort of like a Christian
Yeah,
organization?
exactly.
But I think they're semi-secular. But anyways, he was able to come up with something, some tenets, a moral framework that wasn't dependent on thinking that Jesus was God and that he rose from the dead. So that was our third chat. He came back for a fourth chat with a pie chart that he printed out. This is on my YouTube, my public Facebook page, which is Magnabosco 210, and he printed out a pie chart to it was like it was actually 2 pie charts. There was like a macro version and then like a micro, but these are all the reasons why he thinks that the Christian God is objectively true. So we explored the interactions of these different slices, and well, what happens if we take one of these out, or are the other slices dependent on this one slice? So it was a really great productive talk, and I'm hoping that I can meet with him today, maybe on the campus for that crucial fifth talk about how he determined that his main reason is true. I think it seems like it's coming down to biblical inerrancy.
Oh, that's an
Now,
interesting one.
now what's really interesting is as he was walking away, he's like, okay, so if I understand right, I just have to come back with my best argument for the Bible being true. And I'm like, not exactly. I want to figure out how we can test your best argument to see how you determine that it's true. How did you determine that this is a good reason to think that that Bible? There's a subtle difference there. But yeah, that was probably my one of my best, most recent examples of meeting a theist who is being willing to incur the cost of discarding this belief if they don't have a good reason for it. That is so incredibly important if you find that in your conversation partner, somebody to admit that, if it might be painful, but I'll rethink everything and rebuild if I can't support this claim. When you have an interlocutor who wants to do that and be honest about everything that they're surfacing, and you use street epistemology, you're going to make incredible progress.
Yeah, as opposed to the people who said, even if I saw Jesus like die and never rise from the dead, I'd still believe because it's just
Yeah.
so that important to my life.
Right. Yeah. So for a lot of Christians, it seems that their belief comes down to thinking that the claim that Jesus is the Son of God and that he rose from the dead and the empty tomb is great evidence to back it all up. You're right. Some people will say, well, even if we found the bones and it could be demonstrated in my satisfaction that those were Jesus's bones, I think I'd still believe in Christianity to 100% confidence. Okay. Well, what else is propping it up then? And that's where I think you tend to get into the psychology of belief, that these beliefs are fulfilling psychological needs of ours. And it's hard for people to contemplate what their life would be like without these beliefs until you can encourage them themselves to think of alternative ways to fill those holes.
Yeah, it's
Because you know what I'm saying? Like, what's my safety net? What am I going to go to if I don't think that Vishnu is real or Allah is real or Jesus was real?
yeah, it's all that positive reinforcement, the fact that they were brought up with it, and all of their friends and family had those beliefs and supported them in their goals and values, and they had such positive experiences with this in their life, and they're just trying to think of, well, how could it not be true? Like, what about all this stuff in my life that it's done for me? It's,
Hmm. There's a huge social cost. There's a mental cost. I mean, there's financial costs for people. Going back to the apologists, if somebody's making, they're feeding their families from thinking that this is true. How likely is that person going to be to really honestly contemplate what their life is like without this belief? It can happen. We have examples of people doing that, but it's costly.
yeah,
It's
like the
it, it can be
pastors
more
one.
costly for some.
I forget the organization's name. The pastors who leave Christianity,
Hmm.
and there's a whole website about that.
The Clergy Project.
Yes,
Yeah, it's great.
those guys have it really a really hard situation that they're in. Can't even begin to.
I think they crossed 1,000 members now.
Yeah, we actually had Dan Barker come into our atheist group here, and he was talking about it for a while.
Oh, that's right. He is a part of that. Hmm.
Yeah, they're going through a really tough situation, and the I think street epistemology is a good way to help them express their position and be able to talk with it about people indirectly.
The former, you mean the doubting clergy members
Yeah,
or somebody else?
yeah, the doubting clergy members. Like if they want to ask questions without trying to expose themselves as being atheists, street
Yeah,
epistemology is a good way to do
you're
it.
right. No, you're right because it's very common after a 45-minute talk with somebody, and I'm editing this video with two missionaries from the LDS Church. They do the same thing. They don't know where I stand on their own claim, even after talking for 45 minutes. And I give them an opportunity to ask me, and I give them my position. And I think that's helpful. That's good because I want to try to be neutral. And if my conversation partner can't tell where I stand on their claim, I think that's a good indication that I was being as unbiased as possible in my asking of these questions.
Yeah, I think that's one of the why street epistemology works so well is that it's really not your position against their position. It's more you're asking questions about, well, what is your position and what are some other things about your position and do they align?
Yeah, when you're using SE, it's almost all about asking how they arrived at their conclusion. It's not about me explaining what I found compelling about my stance on it. And here's all this evidence to back up what I'm saying. In SE, we're all about how did you figure it out? Take me through your steps. What are your reasons? What would increase, lower your confidence? And people love talking about their beliefs. And this approach can be really friendly and disarming and respectful. And people, humans, I think, tend to respond really well to this type of approach. They can look at their beliefs in a way that they may have ever looked at before. And I think we got a glimpse of that when we watched that conversation between Doug and
Youth
that
pastor.
youth pastor. Yeah,
Are there any like big common misconceptions about street epistemology that you
a
are?
ton.
Yeah.
Do you want to finish it? That I'm
No,
that
go
I'm.
ahead. Go. What are the common misconceptions?
I think I jotted down like 20 of them here on my phone.
Yeah, go for it.
It's just off the top because I'm keeping a list because I've been wanting to write a blog post or do a video or give a talk about it. You asked if I go to conventions. I would love to give a talk on some of the common misconceptions of it, but I think it might turn into a blog post or a video. Well, we talked about one of them. People think that you have to go out on the street. You don't have to go out on the street. Another one is that this is only a one-way directed, I can't share my position on this view. No, you can do that. You can certainly tell people, you can use this with family members who know where you stand on it. You just have to be aware of the potential impediments that disclosing your view can have on their openness because they may be used to arguing with you about this topic or other people about that topic. That's another common misconception. People tend to think that the belief scale that we use is required. No, it's optional. I think people think that you can only use this with religious people and oh, it's only for Christians. This is just for atheists to use with Christians. Nope. I ran into a guy 2 weeks ago. He was asking what I did, what I was doing out there on the campus. Turns out he's a Catholic and he had a drone. So he flew a drone over and I got some footage from him. But he was really interested in what I was doing and I told him about it. And then I think he watched a couple of videos and then came back in an hour. And he's like, how did it come up? I think at some point I said, would you like to give this a try? And he said, sure. Because I needed to use the bathroom and get some water. So I gave him my camera and I gave him a couple three pointers or four.
Oh, so he
Don't
was
raise the
actually he was doing the Anthony and he was doing the street
Yeah,
epistemology.
I gave him my whiteboard and my camera and everything. So he put his drone down and I put my camera on him and I said four things. Keep the camera pointed down until somebody agrees to be recorded and then lift it up. Figure out what their claim is. Ask for their best reason why. Make sure that it's their reason and then get to how they determine that their reason is true. And for somebody who has never done SE before, to the best of my knowledge, he did a great job. He nailed it. Now he had trouble. The person that stopped, I was actually listening in on my AirPod while he was doing it through the Discord server. So I was like sitting off to the side. He ended up running into an atheist. So I'm sitting there watching this Catholic use all of my equipment to use SE with an atheist. And it was incredible. It was so fun. So I think I will. And he had trouble. The trouble I think that he ran into was not setting aside his biases. I think he felt the need to explain why he thought the God was real and that she would find these compelling reasons. And this is a mistake that we all make when we use it. This is a huge impediment to SE. Boy, I'm getting way far afield here. Um, Other misconceptions about SE. Well, I think one of them, another one is that we pick on unsuspecting, unprepared people who aren't qualified to speak on the topic. And I hate that one. I hate that one. I don't know who I'm going to run into until I stop and talk with them. They could be an expert. They could be a theology major, or I don't know. They could be an expert in that belief, but they're the ones that have the belief. I think it's arrogant. I think it's condescending to think that person's not qualified to explain why she thinks that's true. What kind of message is that sending? They're the ones that have the belief. They formulated that belief. They can probably evaluate the belief. And it's frustrating when I see that. It's quite common. You need to talk to a real theist. You need to talk to a real person who can explain this issue.
I think
And
that's mostly
it's
because
frustrating.
they share the position with the person you're talking to, and they don't think that the person you're talking to is a the strong representation of their beliefs, and so they take it
Yeah.
personally, and they want
Yeah.
like,
Oh
well,
yeah.
you should just talk to me because I actually know the topic or whatever. But yeah, just
Hmm.
probability. Like most people aren't professional apologists, so you're not like gonna. The probability you're gonna run into one and actually start talking is really low compared to just
But I've
anybody
ran
else.
into apologists,
Oh yeah.
and some of them are on the campus, but they don't want to meet with me on camera. They'd rather sit down in a coffee shop, and I could do that. In fact, the day that I ran into the Mormons, yeah, an apologist was messaging me on Messenger, on Facebook Messenger, saying, "Hey, I'm in the coffee shop now. Let's have an off-camera conversation." It's not a good use of my time. So I stayed out there, and I ran into one guy who said, "I've been watching your videos, and I'm using this method with my father, who thinks Donald Trump is the best president ever." And then shortly after that, I ran into these two missionaries from the LDS Church, and that's just a better use of my time
Yeah, I can
to get
understand
that
that.
get that stuff on camera. That watching people use this method and the challenges that come with it is a great way to learn it. And I want to teach people how to do this. I want everyone to learn this, including Christians.
Yeah, like you mentioned the Christian who was doing it with the atheist. I'd like to see more of that to see how that would
Hmm.
happen. Was that one posted? Are you posting that video?
No, but it's going to be a bear of a video to edit because I was changing out batteries. He's got his drone. He comes back like 3 times. Uh, it's going to be it's going to be a complicated edit, but I think I'll upload. I think it will be fun to post what may very well be the first video of a Christian attempting to do street epistemology.
Yeah, we need a Christian to start a street epistemology, a Christian street epistemology channel. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, he ended up joining the Discord server. That was another thing too, is that I'm trying to make this interactive. So if I what I do is when I go out now, I have an AirPod in my ear and I'm broadcasting the audio so people can listen from around the world. Now what's happening is that people that I'm running into physically, I'm inviting to join that Discord server so they can then interact with the others who have been watching, listening.
Yeah, I've started doing that too. I started my own Discord server, and I was like, "Hey, you should join my Discord server for all the people who want to like engage and talk with me." They,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's such a
How
great
many times you're
resource.
like, you should have asked this question. That would have really nailed them. Well, here's your opportunity to ask that question. How did it pan out for you? You know?
Exactly. But so, what time do you have to go to do your conversations? Because you said about an hour,
Yeah. When did we start? Like 10:30?
10:30. Yep.
Oh shit! It's been an hour already, hasn't it? How
Yeah.
about maybe 10 more minutes?
All right. Cool.
Okay. And then we can do this again if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a lot of fun.
What else do you want to know?
What is one thing you wish Christians knew about street epistemology in general?
Hmm. Christians specifically,
Yeah,
like or theists?
theists.
I think I'd want them to know that it's a tool that they can use. So wherever you stand on your theistic claim, you can use it with other theists. You can use it with other people who are in your branch of theism. Like maybe you disagree on some of the doctrine. This could be a useful tool when you engage in discussion about how they determine that no, you should get baptized at this age, or no, you should wait until they're older, or whatever. That might be the biggest thing. And I was trying to show that with inviting that Catholic to take my camera, take my whiteboard. Here's my go. Do you want me to flag somebody down? And he was comfortable doing it too. That yeah, you can use this. This is useful. This should be celebrated. We should we should encourage people to want to have better conversations and have clarity in the views that we have.
Have you
And I
ever
think that might be the biggest thing.
have you ever applied street epistemology to other atheists?
Yep.
How did that go?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of atheists they are 100% sure that there are no gods, or they're sure that they understand the other person's position. So I've run into atheists who say I argue with theists, I ridicule them. I can't wait to show them how stupid they are. So I might use SE to SE how they decided that that's the most effective approach, or maybe they don't even care if it's effective. They're just getting entertainment from it. So yeah, I've used SE with atheists all the time. Sometimes atheists think that they have a soul. Ghosts are real. So and so is the best candidate. Guns should be allowed on campus or not. So absolutely,
Have you used it on yourself? Are there any of your own personal beliefs you've applied SE to?
daily. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even preparing for this interview, I think I woke up thinking, I think I have a thing with Tom today. How do I know that? Like, I think there's a message on my Facebook Messenger. Let me check. Oh yeah, it's there. Okay. The calendar entry had some backing, but I mean, I also use it on deeper beliefs too. In fact, I'm thinking about uploading this video. There was a guy that walked up to me who this is happening more and more frequently where people are walking up to me to say, I love your work, or keep up the good job, or can I get a t-shirt, or something. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Hopefully you can take that out. Um, and now I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry.
People coming up to you telling you how they like your work and they want a T-shirt, and you're going to apply street epistemology to your core beliefs, and you're doing it into these cases.
I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry. But yeah, so atheists will walk up to me. They will say that they want to learn the approach, or they're grateful for it. And then they tend to share examples where they've been using it with people in their lives. And that's neat to see. That's really cool to see.
Have you actually changed any of your own personal beliefs by reflecting through street epistemology about it?
Oh yeah. So I just remember I was going to tell you, and that's kind of related to your question here. I had a guy walk up to me he wanted to talk about veganism, and as it turned out, he was asking me more questions about my position. And I don't know if that's because he was familiar with SE and he was trying it on me, or he was just a naturally inquisitive person, or something else. But I was I was explaining my reasons for thinking that it's probably okay to eat certain kinds of meat to him. And that might be another interesting video. This was one of those situations where I was regretting not having another camera for him to wear, so we could be kind of cutting between the two as he was asking me these questions.
But yeah, I'm definitely on board with the vegan side. I think that's a really good topic that is our morally changing in our society today. That most people are moving more towards. Yeah, it's immoral to kill animals. We probably shouldn't do it, but we just
Hmm.
don't feel it as a society.
Yeah, I'm not entirely. I don't know if I want to get into this here, but I th- I think my stance now is coming down to the animal's ability to morally reason. If an animal can morally reason, then we shouldn't consume it. Meaning an animal species. So there might be a human that can't morally reason. It's in a coma or something, right? But if it's of a species that can morally reason, I think maybe that might be a good delineation. So if we encounter a fish that can't morally reason, maybe it's okay to eat that thing.
I go the extremist route. Anything with consciousness, it's immoral to kill it. So
Oh, you
I,
go to consciousness?
yep. So
Yeah.
I
But
think
why do we think that those are good barometers?
because we have them, so we're doing a self
That's
comparison.
that's what I was thinking too. Because human, but see, just because an animal can have experienced pain or is conscious, I'm not entirely sure that that's the best barometer for it. But it's funny because when I was talking to this kid, he's not a kid, he's a young adult, but this student, he was bringing up Alex O'Connor, the cosmic skeptic. We were talking about veganism when I was on his show, and I think I've bottom line, I think there might be a good conversation in my future with Alex about this topic, and I think I might be able to make a case for being able to eat some animals.
It's interesting
Hmm.
because I definitely fall more in line on the Alex side, where it's immoral. But I choose to do it anyway because I like cheeseburgers. That's it. I'm just an immoral person.
Yeah, I mean, if we could grow meat in a lab and it tastes just the same and it's cleaner, for example, and maybe less harmful on the environment, all those issues go away.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you think, in general, do you think that religious people can have an intellectually reasonable faith? Do you think that's a possibility?
Not without evidence. So if they have evidence, sure. But if they don't have evidence to support their claim, testable, repeatable evidence, no, I don't think anyone could be on good standing to think something is true to 100% confidence if they can't surface sufficient, repeatable, testable evidence. And you don't tend to see that. You get all this dancing. Sometimes I wonder even how you do it, Tom. Like, I don't even know how you go down these philosophical rabbit holes with people. Where's their freaking evidence? Why do we need a like complicated pie chart to explain all these reasons why I think this God is real? It should be simple. It should be demonstrable. It should be clear, and it's not. Now, that's not to say that that's a good reason for not thinking that the God is real, but the lengths that people go to protect these beliefs is freaking amazing. There's a series of videos that I plan to upload in the next year here to a Muslim guy who acknowledges that he doesn't have a good reason for thinking that Allah is real, but the social cost would be too high for him to admit it to himself.
Yeah, it's a tough one, especially in the
Damn,
wow.
damn.
Well, that's been 10 minutes. I'll let you go. Get your have
Thank
your
you.
conversation. It was great having you on. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, yeah, Tom. Thank you very much for having me on your show. Keep up the great work. I love what you're doing with your channel, and it's. I mean, every time I look, you're broadcasting. How are you even keeping up this pace? I don't even know how you do it.
Yeah, it's phenomenal the support I have and the amount of people who are just like professors and apologists like, yeah, we'll come on your show. I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Nice. That's good. Yeah, I have a fairly unlimited supply of interlocutors. They just stroll by, and I ask them, and I'm sure you have to work a lot harder to get people to sit down with you. But yeah, keep up the great work. I
Yeah,
love what you're
thanks.
doing.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on again. I really appreciate the conversation. I'm totally going to start copying you going to my university coming up here next year.
Yeah,
So,
dude, you're in, are you? Do you
Minnesota,
ever disclose?
Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yeah. Oh, you probably can't do it during the winter months, huh?
We can. This is Minnesota, so people are just out here in our t-shirts in the middle of winter. But I'm from Texas, so I hate the cold. Like, oh God.
Yeah. Yeah, there will be people bundled up, and it's probably 55 degrees right now.
Yeah. Hey, want to stop and have a conversation in the freezing cold in winter? Like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
no.
Yeah. Well, if you ever need any help, I don't know,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
doing
actually
that,
thinking
let me
about
know.
inviting you down for one of the because our atheist group invites speakers all the time, like Dan Barker. So I'm gonna pitch having them invite you down. So
Oh, okay, then we can go out and do it. We'll go do
absolutely.
some SE together. Yeah. If you don't mind me just mentioning, I'll be in Calgary, Alberta, to give a talk in mid-January, and then that's I think it coming up. I don't think I have too much going on with regards to talks and workshops and stuff, which is fine with me. But yeah, if you have some availability there, and you can maybe make a donation to the nonprofit that we have in lieu of a speaking fee, that would be great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We do that. We pay the speakers to come down. So
Okay. Cool.
thanks
Cool.
again for coming on. This
I'd
was
love, yeah, I'd love to do it.
yeah. Thanks again for coming on. This was an awesome conversation. I will let you go run to your meeting, and I'll talk to you later.
All right, Tom. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
See ya.